Hi everyone, welcome to this video. Now in this video, we're going to be going over exactly how to add an additional layer of security to your database information through the use of encryption or through the use of hashing. And we may want to use either of these when we have sensitive information or personal information where we just want an additional layer of security. So let's jump into the editor and get started. And what we're doing right now is we're still building that same application of a social network where it's very much like Facebook. People can view user profiles, people can message each other as well. And what we're on here is the onboarding page that you jump onto just after you have signed up to our application. And what you need to do is you need to add some information about yourself. So your university, your bio, your date of birth, and an access phrase. And what we want to do is we want to add some additional security to these two, the date of birth and the access phrase. So for the date of birth, we want to encrypt it. So we don't want anyone to be able to just view the date of birth information off the database. Only the admin will be able to decrypt this information. Now, I do want to state that Bubble itself stores all the data in your database in an encrypted format on their servers, but the reason why we want to encrypt this information is just in case we make a mistake, for example, with our privacy rule setup, and then the data and the date of birth information gets exposed on the page. All that will be exposed is the encrypted information, so it adds that layer of security. And then the second one we have is the access phrase. So to access your account information and actually update your account after you've been onboarded, you need to provide an access phrase. And the reason why we do that is it's really common when you're at university or in school, your friends will just hack your account and update your profile details. So this just adds that little bit of extra security for a hash, okay? And hashing is generally used when we're working with things like passwords, but Bubble obviously has its own password flow and does this automatically. But in this example, when you need to save something for authentication purposes, such as this access phrase, but you actually never need to decode the access phrase, we can use a hash instead of an encryption. The reason why is it's very, very difficult to recover the original text once it's been hashed. And then when we do the checking of the access phrase, we hash the access phrase that the user enters and just make sure that it matches with each other. That might be a bit confusing, but we're going to go over it in detail over the course of this video. But let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump over to our plugins. We're going to add a plugin and we're going to search for Encrypt. And we're going to go Encrypt Decrypt Text by Airdev. Mine says uninstall, but it'll come up with install for you just because I've already installed it. And you'll be able to see it here. It has 5 actions and we'll be going through them over the course of the video. The first thing we need to do is we need this key. And the way we're actually going to grab that key is if I jump over to my design tab, I just need to add a piece of dummy text over here. I am going to make this group type text, and then I'm going to make this dummy text parent groups text. Then I'll go to my workflow and go when page is loaded, get random bytes, and then display data in a group. That's going to be group inner buttons. Result of step 1's random bytes. So now we have this randomly generated text string. So the reason why I wanted to use the plugin to give me that is then I can jump over here and I can add this in here. So the reason why we generated the key from the plugin and placed it here on the page is that this key needs to be long and it needs to be random. So you could generate this key elsewhere, like on a website which allows you to generate keys, but the plugin just really easily allows you to generate the key through this action. And the reason why it's so important to make sure that it is long and random is that if it is not, it means that your encryption or your hashing won't be as secure. Now we can delete this one. I don't need that anymore. I'll change this back to clear selection. What I want to do now is I want to show you how to encrypt the date of birth information. All right, so when we click Save Changes, what we're doing is we're making changes to the current users and saving all of this information on their profile. But what I want to do is I actually want to encrypt a string, and the input string is going to be input date of birth's value. And here, what I actually want to do is I want to store date of birth, result of step 1's encrypt string, output string. Important to note that this will always evaluate as a text. So in our database, we're saving this as a text. What I will do now is I'll just show you what that one looks like. So we'll add a university, being this is my uni, this is my bio. Date of birth is going to be 23rd, second to the 3rd. We'll put it as 1990. Let's put a dummy access phrase for now, and I'll save the changes. So a couple of small things there that I would like to do. When the button Save Changes is clicked, usually I'd reset the form. I'd have a little error alert coming up saying, hey, form has been successfully submitted, and I'd actually send the user to the next page, okay? I'm not gonna do that for the course of this purpose of this video, but that is what good design and development practice would involve. If I go over to my app database, I can say the uni is provided, the bio is provided, and if I look at my date of birth, I've just got a massive encrypted text. So the question now is, how do we decrypt this information? And what we want is we want our admin to be able to do that. So I'm going to go to admin users menu, and this is on the admin portal on the user profile, or where the section where the admin can view all the user profiles. This is referring to the focus group that's over here. So admin can edit a user, reset their password, or deactivate it. And what I want to do is we have a pop-up over here, which is add edit user, where the admin can edit the user's information. And what I'm going to do, if I reveal this, is I'm actually going to make this one to display the decrypted text. So this is going to be input decrypt. And then I'm going to change this group last name to date of birth. And then when the person clicks on button option edit user 1, we trigger show edit user pop-up, and if I edit that workflow, what I want to do is I want to add something which is display data, but before that I want to go decrypt string. The input string is admin user menus user date of birth encrypted, so the encrypted string, and then we want to display group date of birth, the decrypted string's output string, and then that should be displayed. So let's test this out and make sure that it works. So we go to here, we click edit user, and we can see under last name, we've got the date. Obviously, that should say date of birth, but what we can see here is that we now view the decrypted string where we provided the actual date and now it's being presented to us. So that's how to encrypt and decrypt string. Now, let's jump back to our editor and go over how to hash pieces of information. Alrighty, so let's go back to our onboarding page over here. And if I go to my workflow tab, what we want to do is we want to hash the access phrase and then save it to our database. And the way that we do that is we want to hash a string with a salt. And then I'll go input access phrases value. We'll leave the salt empty for now. And then over here, we'll go to result of step 2's hash string is the access phrase. And then I have an additional database item being access phrase salt. And that's going to be a result of step 2's salt. And why the salt is important will become really obvious in a moment. But for now, let's preview this page. So I'll put Airdev Bootcamp as my access phrase. If I jump back to my database and I have an access phrase salt here and I have an access phrase. So that's hashed. We can't reverse it. Now, if I go to this page called access, what we essentially have is the user has to provide this security phrase to actually access their account information. So what we do is they need to provide the phrase of, in this case, Airdev Bootcamp. And then we hash this particular string and we make sure that the two hashes matches. So the hash which is in our database and the hash of the input that they've just provided. And we use the same salt for both. And if that works, then the user goes on to the next phase. All right. So to show you exactly what that looks like, we can go to here. And what we can do is we can go hash string with salt. And we will go input access phrases value. Now for the salt, we're going to go current users access phrase salt. And then what we would do here is we'd actually do the go to the next page. But before we do that, what I actually want to do is I want to visually show you how this works on the page. So we'll go success, the access phrase is correct. And the way that we do that is we go result of step 1's hash string is current user's access phrase, which is also hash string. What I also want to do is give you an example of when this is incorrect. Try again. And I want this one to be a warning. And then I want this to also be when it is not. So let's test this out. Sweet. So we can see that the access phrase is correct. If I put a 1 after it, it goes try again. This access phrase is incorrect. So what I would actually do is I'd actually do a go to page account and I'd copy this one here so that when it is true, you go to the page account, and if it's incorrect, you would get a warning. So that is an explanation of what encryption is, when you will need to use it, how to use it, and then likewise with hashing a string as well. You know, what it is, when will you use it, and how does it really apply to an application.